All right, getting back to City Council, if you're successful in getting onto City Council, what changes would you like to see on the City Council, either in the way that they operate, the way they do things, the direction that they're going in? What would you like to see done differently, if anything?
Well, I have to say, I think when you're elected into that office and you've never served in any of that capacity, the very first thing you have to do is learn how it works. I think that you need to find how each department operates, how each one is, what their fields are, how they investigate incidents, ordinances, any type of problem that comes up. I think you need to learn that side first before you can actually do any suggestions and changes. I think that has to be a gradual. I don't think that can be done overnight. I don't know of any business, any area that you can go into and just walk in and say, okay, this is how we're going to change everything. I don't think you can do that without knowing backgrounds first. And so to me, it needs to be looked at, read, and followed and checked out. And, you know, just I probably know the majority of the people that work in the City Hall now since I've lived here for 13 years, but I've never actually sat down and actually seen how they operate, how many people they have working for them. We all have that little email, but I think that's something that you have to start out first gradually, and then you work into the changes.
Okay. Kind of related to that, one of the big things that will continue to be a challenge in at least the next year to 2 years at City Hall, budget and finance. Especially when you're looking at the possibility that the state may want to take back some of the money that we ordinarily get. Are there any particular areas where you think we can still make some cuts, or do you think that we have cut as far as we can cut? How are you going to address some of these budget issues?
When it comes to cutting back on jobs, I don't think it's fair to take the low man on the totem pole. I think it needs to be looked over as a whole object, and you start at the top and you start cutting out there first, and then you go down below as you go. I would like to use the idea that I had heard somebody else had used. They looked at the top echelon, the chiefs, as most people call it, and see where the expending there is not necessary, how you can cut back in that first. Then you work your way down. I don't believe in starting at the bottom, working your way up. It doesn't seem to make any sense to get rid of all the people who do all the work. Let's get rid of the heavy top. And everybody knows it, and I think anybody that has anything to do with government knows that it's top heavy.
Okay, so it sounds like what you're saying is instead of cutting individual jobs, you're talking about maybe lowering salaries or lowering some of those expenses across the board. Would that be a fair statement?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, just take the whole department as a whole and look at all the expenses in the whole complete department and go from there. Now, I have to say, I wasn't in on the last budget cut, so I don't know if that was done that way, but it didn't seem like that when I seen how many people were laid off and which ones were gone and left.
Okay. All right, the issue of one of the things that goes hand in hand with budgets and expense cutting is revenues. And you talked about trying to help some of the small businesses. Is there anything that you can think of within the framework of City Council or City Hall that could help some of these businesses, specifically things like rate rollbacks on business license fees or permit fees? Where is your thinking on those kind of issues?
Well, I know there's been several other candidates have even made this comment that it has to be done. I think it has to be studied closely. I don't think you can do this at a random thought. And like I said, I've not been in this position, so I'm not sure what all has been thought about. But in the small businesses, I get the feeling from when I talk to the different small businesses in town, they aren't getting any cooperation. They aren't getting any help. They aren't getting any, and I don't think they want handouts. I don't feel any of the owners want handouts. But maybe the cutback on the taxes of the license fees, the different things, we can lower those in some areas without hurting the city. because that is how the city makes its money, to keep it going. So we do know that part, but it has to be really scrutinized. And I did make my comment in there that I've lived on a budget. Because you're in the military, there is no money, so you learn to live on a budget pretty tight. And so I would like to think that I'm capable of looking at things with that perspective in mind, to know that we can do that for these businesses. Let's make it easier for them. Let's make Mesquite where people want to move in. Bring their businesses here. I know of 5 different businesses who have been in town and have tried and tried and tried to get their business going and end up can't do it because they were just bogged down with all the paperwork, and they tried to cooperate with the city hall, and it seemed like every time they did, something else was brought up. I know these people aren't going to come in and try to take a shortcut through the laws that the city hall gives them. But there has to be a cutoff point. There has to be a point where you say, okay, this is how we're going to let them come in. We've got to work with them, not against them.
Okay. When you look at the future of Mesquite, and it was actually a question that we had on a poll recently, and it really cuts to the core of, I think, where a candidate stands and what they anticipate Mesquite becoming. When you look at Mesquite, do you see the future of Mesquite as being more of a tourist destination, a gaming town, a golf town, small industry or light industry, or something else? Where do you see Mesquite as being? A retirement community? Those, I think, were the 5. What do you see Mesquite as being? And obviously the easy answer is all of them. But
well, it is all of them.
Okay.
I mean, when we came into town, that's what it was. It was for retirement. In fact, I was told by a construction worker, all the homes and houses and condos were built for temporary living. They were not built for permanent living, because this was going to be a resort town. That was how the builders at that time were doing it. But I think that changed. In the first 5 years we were here, everybody was becoming permanent in town. I have no problems with the sports annex. I have no problems with the golf tournaments. I have no problems with any of those coming into town. My only problem is, and the gentleman I think at City Hall meeting the other night made the comment, we only have so many rooms. How can you bring sports complex in and all these different activities in the golf areas, the softball, the soccer and all that, if we don't have places to put these people? I mean, I don't want them going to St. George or Las Vegas for the rooms. That money needs to stay in Mesquite, but you can't bring those kind of things. And so it seems to me that when they're thinking about bringing that type of business into town, they're not looking past the point of where we're going to put them up at. We do have restaurants. We have enough restaurants in town to fill everybody up, but we just don't have places for them to sleep. So there is a problem until they decide what they're going to do with the Old Star and what they're going to do with the Oasis and all that. So those things we have to look at. I think we can be all of the above. Okay, I don't see anything wrong with being a resort town. I mean, you can look at Palm Springs, you can look at, I watched it grow. I watched a lot of the different little towns grow up like that. The town we just moved from, over 13 years ago, Colorado Springs, Colorado, when we first moved there, that was a very small town. And they based theirs on tourism because of the Rockies and the Air Force Academy. We have a lot of tourist Garden of the Gods and things like that. But they didn't keep that. They kept small businesses coming in. So the large business polluted the air more, so they kept small businesses coming in. I don't see anything wrong with that either. We have a whole industrial park out here sitting empty. It should be used. Why aren't we bringing some small businesses in? And again, that probably is the tax structure of the state and the city. But we need to look at that. So I think we can be a little bit of all.
Okay.
I think that makes the town rounded.